Random thoughts. In this video, I'm going to read part of C.W. Hobley's book, Bantu Beliefs and Magic. And in this part, he discusses the topmost political organ of the AGIKUYU Republic. Now, this is the organ that the British abolished immediately they established an administration on the land. And most people don't know about this. I did not know about this, and I've heard of the Itwika organ, but I've never given it much thought until I started reading this document. Then it became clear to me what it was actually. Of course, I've always said that the AGIKUYU was a republic, and it is a republic because its political organization was around senates, and these are bodies that were composed of people who qualified to join councils, and it is in these councils that very critical decisions of the society were made. And seems like there were many councils on the land, the senates. There were many senates on the land. We can think of it like today there are so many county assemblies in Kenya. But there was that one overall senate that was on top of everything else in the political organization of the AGIKUYU. And this is what was called the Itwika. Now, the Itwika will have one sitting, and that sitting used to happen once every 15 to 20 years. And the way it was arranged, we are going to read the details of how this body was organized or how it used to do its business. The last one was done in 1887. That's when the last one was done. And C.W. Hobley happened to have followed up what happened in that sitting. Now, the second one or the next one was supposed to happen in the 1920s because they used to follow generations. When this sitting happened, there were decisions that these sittings used to resolve, or issues that these sittings would resolve. And these are issues that could not be resolved by the ordinary Kiama or we can say senates. So these sittings will happen and to resolve a few issues or very critical issues. It will do some ceremonies, some spiritual ceremonies, some rituals, and then it will break, and now it will break until there is a next sitting, which means the members of this Itwika will sit in that sitting only once, and only those people who had been initiated to the highest level of the Kiama structure were qualified to sit in that council or in that Senate sitting. And after that, they were not going to sit again. The next people to sit were most likely their own grandchildren. And we are going to read that detail is explained by Hobley somewhere in this text. The Itwikas have said the last one happened in 1887, and the next one was going to happen in the 1920s. It did not happen. The British did not allow it. They abolished it. They banned it, and it has never happened since. So it's over 100 years since the last Itwika happened. Some people have made suggestions, apparently, that the body should be revived, especially after Kenya has become independent. There is a new constitution that can likely recognize such bodies, but I don't think it's going to be the same thing because that was a purely political organ. It's like saying the Supreme Court of Kenya today or the Senate of Kenya today. So if Kenya is going to be abolished as a commonwealth and then it is swallowed into a new commonwealth, later on, if we say, we remember the old days when we used to have a Kenyan Supreme Court or a Kenyan Senate, and maybe we should revive it. We can't really, because that will be, it will not have the same powers, number one, because the decisions of that body will not be politically binding like it used to be. That's one issue. The second issue is that during these sittings, seems like it is during these sittings that the most secretive knowledge of the society was passed on to the next generation. Unfortunately, because the sitting did not happen in 1920s and it has never happened since, of course, the people who sat in the sitting of 1887, of course, they are long gone, and there was no opportunity to pass the knowledge over to the next generation, at least entirely like it was supposed to be done. So I'm thinking, it's my opinion that there is a lot of knowledge that were lost there. The British ensured that that chain was broken. Now, so Hobley does give us details about this Itwika body and its sitting. And he tells us that the place where he explains this, and I need to point out that I'm reading this book at this point, is still in the area of initiation and age sets and such things. There is a chapter on government organization of the AGIKUYU Republic, and we'll come to that later on, and maybe he's going to tell us more about this Itwika. But in this part, he's trying to explain to us how he arrived at an answer to a question that he had about the age set arrangements, because he was wondering, in the Kikuyu age set, and I have another video about the age sets, there were so many age sets, and he had counted going back almost 100 years. That is from around 1910. Going back over 100 years, there were these different age sets. But at some point, these age sets will be lumped together to form two major age groups. And these were the Mwangi and the Maina. Now, usually, as a grandson and a grandfather will fall into the same age group. That will be a Mwangi or a Maina. And then their father and the grandchildren, the children of the sons will fall into the same age set. And I've explained this in another video. So he was trying to figure out who determined which of these many age sets will be lumped together to become Mwangi or to become Maina. And then he came to realize, actually, this is a decision that was made by the Itwika, which is a meeting that happened every 15 to 20 years. That's when these senators will sit. I don't like calling them elders because that cheapens who they were. These senators will sit and they will make these decisions, and they will decide this age set, up to this point, these are going to be Mwangi, and these ones are going to be Maina. That's where the decisions were made, and that's the part where he brings up the Itwika, and I'm hoping in the chapter on political organization he's going to tell us more about this. But this is what he says. He says, it was not clear at the time what determined a group of Rika being lumped together as Maina or Mwangi. It now appears, however, that this is connected with a periodic ceremony called the Itwika, which takes place every 15 years or so. So he calls it a ceremony, which again cheapens what it was. He calls it a ceremony, but when you get to understand the things that went on, and even him is insinuating that that decision was made in that meeting, then it's not really a ceremony, it's a Senate sitting. And he continues to say, these correspond to the great extent to the eunoto of the Maasai and are of the tremendous importance to the Kikuyu. So the Maasai used to have a similar Senate sitting every 15 or so years, and the Maasai is called the eunoto. And I've said in other videos that the Maasai and the Kikuyu was so integrated in culturally. They used to share a lot of cultural practices that you will think these two groups of people are brothers. And actually, there is a book I read, I think it is the book by Richard Maynard Sagen, his diary, where he says that he did talk to a senior, we can say, a senior leader among the Kikuyu, who told him that actually the Maasai and the Kamba and the Kikuyu come from the same origins. But he dismissed it, of course, because of the theory of the Bantu and Nilotic. That theory, he says there's no way, because we need to just focus on the language. Don't focus on any other facts. Don't even think that language can be taken and dropped. Just language goes with genetics, which is not actually what happens. So he says the Maasai used to have a similar body called Eunoto. He says the elders, in fact, say that they originated in Kikuyu and were copied by the Maasai during the period when the Kaputei and Ogilani Maasai were very friendly with the southern Kikuyu and Purko Maasai with the northern Kikuyu. In the present state of our knowledge, it is, however, impossible to say whether there is any foundation for this. So he says it's hard to tell whether it's the Maasai who copied this from the Kikuyu or the Kikuyu who copied from the Maasai. So that's where the issue of the Itwika come from, is where he was trying to figure out how was it decided which age sets will be grouped or lumped together to become an age group of either Maina or Mwangi. So he came to realize actually there is this body called Itwika, which made those decisions, even though he calls it a ceremony. It was a sitting. At least that's what I'm thinking, looking at everything. Now, he tells us about the last Itwika sitting, which happened in 1898. Actually, it's 1898, not 1887, as I had said earlier. The last Itwika ceremony was at the end of the big famine of 1898-1899 and was held about the time that the government founded Fort Hall. So when Fort Hall is Moranga, when Moranga was set up, the town, that is the time when the last Itwika ceremony happened. And these two events were not actually related, but it's just saying that it's about the same time. The gatherings were formerly held on the area between the Thika and Chania rivers, just above the junction of these two rivers. And the name Thika is derived from its connection with the Itwika. The last Itwika was held near Kalakis in the district known as Tinganga in Mimiwaruchu's country. So apparently the name Tika comes from the Itwika. That's what he says. I don't know whether that's actually accurate. Maybe it is, maybe not, but that's what he says, that the name Thika comes from the Itwika. That it is said that on account of the decimation of the people by famine and smallpox, it was decided not to hold it at the old place. So it used to happen in that Tinganga place, but because there was this famine and there was smallpox, it was decided they were not going to hold the sitting there. The next Itwika will take place when the grandchildren of the people of the same Rika as the chief Kinanjui have all been circumcised, and the decision of the date rests with the Athuri ya Ukuu of the minor generation, this being the senior generation today. This apparently corresponds to the Ganje of the Maasai. So the location was changed for the 1899 or 1898 Itwika meeting because of the smallpox and the famine that was going on. And then he tells us that the next Itwika will take place when the grandchildren of the senior-most people have been circumcised. So when the grandchildren of the senior-most elders in the society have been circumcised, that's when the next Itwika happens. So that's how it was. But the actual date was decided by this council that was known as Athuri ya Ukuu of the minor generation during that time. I guess it could be Mwangi generation in the next one, something of sorts. And he says this corresponds to Ganje. Gaje seems like it was the Maasai, its own. Could be Gaje is a generation of the Maasai. I might be wrong about that. Could be a season. Somebody can leave a comment if you get what this part means. And this comes from Hollis, who talks about the Maasai. These are documents seems like I might need to go through. So then Hobley goes into describing to us how the last Itwika meeting happened and what he collected from it. Could be he did attend or he did interview people who attended. That part is not very clear. He says, and when I say attended, I don't mean that he was actually in the sitting, because he wasn't. He was not qualified to sit in the sitting. I mean, like maybe he was around where this meeting was happening. That's what I mean. I don't mean that he attended like part of the delegation or part of the senators or part of anything really. He says, an account of the last ceremony was obtained from one who was present. Okay, he does say where this came from. He says he got an account of what happened from somebody who was present. But we need to be very careful about this. And he's going to point out this actually. The people who attended these ceremonies were under oath not to share it with anybody else. And he actually says that, and we're going to see him say that. So it's possible whatever information he was given was not accurate. He was misled. There is that possibility. So we need to understand this information with that backdrop that since he was not qualified to attend, and the people who attended were under oath not to share the secrets of whatever went on in the sitting, it's possible, number one, he did not get the whole story, which he admits. Number two, whatever he got could be could be not accurate. He says, an account of the last ceremony was obtained from one who was present, and the first step is said to be the building of a huge long hut to accommodate those who participate in the festival, which I would say in the sitting. So the first thing is a huge hut is built for this special sitting of the Itwika. This is divided into two main divisions, one for the elders of the Maina generation and one for those of the Mwangi generation, and in addition, a small room for Athuri ya Ukuu, who may be considered as the officiating priest of the festival. So there's one section for the Mwangi elders, and there's another section for the Maina elders, and then there's a smaller section for Athuri ya Ukuu, who I'm trying to understand, could be they belonged in both these generations, but could serve or used to serve as the officials who made sure everything went the way it was supposed to go. I'm thinking we could call it maybe probably the office of the speaker. I'm thinking that could be the terminology we can assign this to. He calls them the priest. These Athuri Oku are always 8 in number, and at the last Itwika, their names were Muthaka, Ngombwa, Tutua, Kimwaki, Kathungu, Kithenji wa Njuki, Rimui wa Kanjuku, Ngegenya, and Mbura wa Katuku, and the whole program rested in their hands. So I can call it the office of the speaker, basically. In the Senate, in the Kenyan Senate, for example, there is that committee that handles the the calendar of the parliament or even in the National Assembly. So I think this is something similar, actually, that there are these members of this Senate who had the responsibility of looking at the timetable, the calendar, and everything that was going to happen in the sitting. I think we can think of them like that. The principal elder of each village is supposed to attend. You can call them a senator or a representative. And then the next in the importance as well, the gathering, therefore consists of several thousand souls, and the proceedings continue for 3 months or more. Each elder brings sheep and goats, bullocks, gourds of honey, beer, and gourds of sugar cane, beer, and relays of food are brought to the camp during the ceremonies by women, but no women are allowed within the confines of the camp. So the women will bring food. They are not supposed to attend. They just bring it maybe at the gate and they'll go back and as the sittings go on. A number of men are also selected to collect firewood but do not come inside the camp. So it was not just women. It was also even men who were not qualified, who had not been initiated to attend such meetings. They would just be assigned to go bring firewood and provide services within the camp but not attend the meetings. The only person allowed inside the camp except the elders are 8 spearmen who are told off to attend on the 8th AGIKUYU. So this could be security, I'm thinking. These 8 spearmen are security. They provide security in the camp, and they are there to, of course, make sure everything goes on the way it's supposed to go, and nobody attends who is not supposed to attend. Then Hobley says, it does not appear possible to obtain detailed account of the proceedings, but he said that every day the 8 AGIKUYU instruct their juniors in the customs of the tribe and so forth. The elders also hold ngomas or dances. So he could not get information about what actually happened inside there. But he did get some info, a little bit of that what happened, in fact, is that the older members were instructing the junior members about the customs and the rules and the constitutions and protocol of the republic. So, and they did some dances and things like that. He continues, one man is chosen as an official trumpeter to the proceedings, and he collects the elders for the various rites by blowing a horn on the rare bongo antelope ndogoro. So one of them is given the trumpet, is a trumpeter. Let's call him a timekeeper. Maybe not exactly, but that's what I'll call him. And of course, he collects the senators. Let's call them that, or maybe we can give them another judicial title. The elders is part of that cheapening and caricaturing of the African societies, actually. The name elders, tribe, warriors, those words are used specifically to make African society a caricature of what they actually are, to deny them the identity of being Commonwealth, being nations like any other part of the world, especially Europe. The horn is called choro, and no one else is allowed to blow it. This is considered a very honorable office, and the trumpeter is paid 9 rams and 9 female kids for his services. So actually the trumpeter was paid, this timekeeper, we can call him so. The bell ringer, maybe something of sorts. This person was paid, and he was paid very well, I'm thinking. So that's the first part. I'm going to do a next one, still exploring what happened at the Itwika meetings. And yeah, those are my random thoughts.